The quantum distress beacon pierced through subspace like a dying star's last scream. Orla's sensory tendrils contracted involuntarily as the signal flooded her consciousness aboard the research vessel Luminous Drift. Her species, the Cathurians, had evolved to perceive electromagnetic frequencies across 17 dimensions, but this particular wavelength carried something she hadn't felt in 3 centuries: recognition. Analysis complete, Daniel's voice crackled through the translation matrix, his human accent still carrying that peculiar warmth even through the biomechanical interface. He floated in the zero-gravity command nexus, his augmented neural implants glowing faintly beneath his dark skin. The signature matches Cathurian subharmonic patterns, old ones, pre-diaspora. Orla's bioluminescent core pulsed amber, concern in her species' color language. That's impossible. The homeworld was abandoned 400 years ago. The stellar collapse should have sterilized the entire system. Daniel pulled up the holographic display, his fingers dancing through streams of data that would have taken a non-augmented human hours to process. Since the integration, when humanity had joined the galactic community 70 years ago, humans had proven surprisingly adept at bridging the gap between organic intuition and quantum computing. Daniel was among the best. "Impossible or not, someone's alive down there," he said, magnifying the source location. "And they're using a Class 7 emergency protocol. That's reserved for extinction-level events." Orla knew that protocol intimately. Her great-grandmother had been part of the Cathurian science delegation that had detected Earth's radio signals in the early 21st century, primitive electromagnetic emissions that had seemed like cosmic curiosity until the delegation realized what they were witnessing: a species on the brink of self-destruction. The Cathurians had violated the non-interference directive that day. They had sent unmanned probes with encoded warnings about nuclear proliferation, climate cascade failures, and the mathematical inevitability of civilizational collapse if humanity continued its trajectory. The probes had been subtle, asteroid deflections that seemed natural, atmospheric modifications disguised as solar activity, quantum-encrypted messages hidden in cosmic background radiation that only the most advanced human scientists could decode. It had worked, barely. Humanity had pulled back from the precipice, unified in the face of cosmic revelation, and emerged as one of the fastest developing species in the known galaxy. The Cathurians had paid a heavy price for their interference: censure from the Galactic Council, trade sanctions, diplomatic isolation. But Orla's people had never regretted it. "We have to respond," Orla said, her decision crystallizing instantly. Daniel nodded, already plotting the jump coordinates. "I figured you'd say that. Course is laid in. We can be there in 16 hours. The luminous drift entered hyperspace with a soundless shudder, reality folding around them like origami made of spacetime itself. During the journey, Orla and Daniel reviewed everything they knew about the Cathurian homeworld's fate. The red giant star, KX7749, had entered its death phase earlier than predicted, a stellar anomaly that had forced the evacuation of 12 billion Cathurians across the sector. The operation should have been complete, but in the chaos of a civilization fleeing its dying sun, mistakes happened. People were left behind. For 400 years, apparently, someone had survived. They emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the dead system. What had once been a vibrant star was now a cooling white dwarf, its pale light casting ghostly shadows across the remnants of Cathurian civilization. Planets had been reduced to cinders, orbital stations hung as skeletal remains, and the void was thick with debris. "I'm picking up the beacon source," Daniel reported, his enhanced perception filtering through the electromagnetic noise. "Third moon of the gas giant. There's still an atmosphere thin but breathable for Cathurians. And Daniel," he paused, his expression shifting to something like awe, "there's a biodome, intact." Orla felt her core surge with hope and dread in equal measure. They took a shuttle down, navigating through the debris field with Daniel's piloting skills and Orla's multidimensional spatial awareness working in perfect synchronization, a partnership forged over 5 years of deep space exploration. The biodome emerged from the barren landscape like a jewel in ash. It was massive, spanning several kilometers, its surface patched and repaired with materials scavenged from the ruins around it. As they approached, the airlock cycled open automatically, as if expecting them. Inside, they found a garden, not the sterile hydroponics of a survival shelter, but a living, breathing ecosystem, Cathurian flora in full bloom, their fractal petals rotating to capture the artificial light. At the center stood a single figure. She was old, ancient by Cathurian standards, her crystalline exoskeleton clouded with age, her bioluminescent core flickering weakly. But when she perceived them, her color shifted to brilliant gold, joy. "I knew someone would come," she said in the old tongue, her voice harmonizing across multiple frequencies. "I just didn't expect it would take 4 centuries, or that you'd bring a human." Daniel stepped forward, his translation implant working overtime. Orla introduced them both, learning that the elder's name was Thesha, and she had been a junior engineer during the evacuation, young enough to survive, stubborn enough to refuse to give up. "Why didn't you leave?" Orla asked gently. Thesha's colors dimmed to somber blue. "Because I was responsible for the genetic archive. 300,000 species from our homeworld, their DNA encoded in quantum storage. When the evacuation became chaotic, the transport carrying the archive was damaged. I thought I could repair it by time for a rescue." She gestured to the biodome around them. "The rescue never came, so I built this, kept the knowledge alive, kept myself alive, waiting." Daniel was scanning the facility with his neural implants, and suddenly his eyes widened. "Orla, this archive, it's not just Cathurian. There are thousands of extinct species here, civilizations that died before they ever reached the stars, and," he looked at Thesha with something like reverence, "you've been collecting." The old Cathurian pulsed affirmative. "When you live 400 years alone, you find projects. Every derelict ship that drifted through this system, every probe from long-dead worlds. I salvaged them, extracted their data, preserved their stories. This biodome isn't just a survival shelter. It's a memorial to everyone who didn't make it." Orla felt the weight of that sacrifice, that dedication. 4 centuries of solitude, maintaining a monument to loss. "We'll get you out of here," Daniel said firmly. "The archive, everything, will bring it all to safety." "To where?" Thesha asked, her colors uncertain. "My people scattered to 1,000 worlds. Where is home now?" Orla and Daniel exchanged a glance, a moment of wordless communication that humans and Cathurians had become surprisingly good at. "Earth," Orla said. "We'll take you to Earth." Thesha's bioluminescence flickered with confusion. "The primitive world, the one we aided." Daniel smiled, and there was something fierce and proud in it. "Not primitive anymore. We learned fast, and we never forgot what your people did for us, even if we didn't fully understand it at the time. The Cathurian delegation that helped Earth, they're celebrated in our history. There's a monument in Geneva, a research institute in Lagos, a orbital station bearing your species' name." He pulled up a holographic image. Earth, blue and green and alive, surrounded by a constellation of space stations and shipyards, its people reaching toward the stars with the urgency of those who'd almost lost everything. "Your people saved our civilization when they didn't have to," Daniel continued. "Now we've got universities, xenobiology centers, the largest genetic preservation facility in the sector, and we owe your people a debt. Let us pay it." Thesha was quiet for a long moment, processing across multiple dimensions of thought. Then her core blazed brilliant white: acceptance, gratitude, hope. "Yes," she said simply, "take me home." As they prepared the archive for transport, Daniel worked alongside Thesha with the careful reverence of someone handling sacred artifacts. Orla watched them, the human and the ancient Cathurian, separated by biology and time but united in purpose, and felt something profound settle in her core. Her great-grandmother had broken the rules to save a species. Now that species was returning the favor, not out of obligation but out of genuine compassion. The cycle was complete. 3 weeks later, the luminous drift entered Earth's orbit. Thesha stood in the observation deck, her sensory tendrils extended fully as she perceived the living world below, a planet that had been on the brink of death when her people had intervened, now thriving, vibrant, reaching outward with all the determination of survivors who refused to waste their second chance. "Thank you," she said softly to Orla and Daniel, "for coming back." Daniel placed a gentle hand on the transparent dome, looking down at his homeworld. "Always," he said. "That's what you taught us. That compassion isn't a weakness. That reaching across the void to help someone isn't foolish. It's the only thing that matters. You gave us tomorrow. The least we can do is share it." Below them, Earth turned in the light of its stable, life-giving sun. And in the cargo bay, 300,000 species that had been extinct for millennia waited to be reborn, preserved by one stubborn Cathurian's 400-year vigil, rescued by a species that understood the value of a second chance. The debt was paid, the circle was complete, and in the darkness between stars, hope traveled in both directions.